Now facing. We can have upward facing and downward facing. Upward facing means the youngest rock is on the top. This is the normal. This is what we expect, because as rock gets buried, it has younger rock on top of it. That's why it's buried. And then that gets buried with even younger rock, and so forth. So we expect to see upward facing layers with the youngest on the top. If you go ahead and fold that, you have an upward facing fold. Unless things get really extreme. If you have something labeled downward facing, this means that the youngest is on the bottom. The beds have been overturned. This is usually caused by extreme folding on a scale much larger than what you're looking at. Hopefully it'll make a little bit of sense here in just a second. Actually, I'll come back to that. Anticline and syncline are when you know the facing. So an anticline is an antiform with upward facing. Therefore, the young is away from the core. You notice in this antiform, it is an anticline because the youngest rock is on top and away from the center. A syncline is a synform because it's hinged downward, but specifically a synform where the youngest material is on top and towards the center, towards the core. So if the hinge is on top and it's younging away from the core, it's an anticline. So all anticlines are antiforms, but also if the younging and facing is backwards from normal, it's still an antiform, but it is not an anticline anymore. All synclines are synforms, and in all synclines, the younging is towards the core, so it's still upward facing. If it happens to be downward facing, it can still be a synform, but it is not a syncline. Okay, let me hold on a second. Getting back to this folding on a large scale. Let me do some drawing here. I wish I had a pen on this computer to do the drawing. Here we go. So we'll add some lines. So if we started off with some layers like this, let's do this. There we go. So now, we have a couple of layers, and we're going to fold them, but let's first change some of the colors. So this will let us identify the youngest and oldest. So yellow is the youngest, and then green, and then red is the oldest. So this is upward facing with no folding. Now, let's go ahead and fold it some. Now it's folded. It's still upward facing. The youngest is still on the top. No problem. We have an anticline, which we talked about a few slides after this slide here. So it says younging upward, upward facing, hinges at the top. It's an anticline. Now, imagine lots and lots of extreme folding. I'm going to bring this way around here. So you can see, okay, I've folded it a whole bunch more. Now we keep going, fold it even more, lots more stress. Lots and lots of tectonic stresses going on. And now we have this area in the bottom where the youngest, the yellow, is below the green and below the red. So in this area, our oldest is on top because of the extreme folding that went on. Now, later, some other folding could happen, which might be why we come in and look at it. And these are no longer straight, they're kinked up and bent. But in this area, the youngest is on the bottom. This is a downward facing portion of the mountainside. Imagine if a bunch of erosion happened and those all erode away. Oh, and apparently the erosion took the text with it. Let's bring the text back. Okay, so we're just going to erode layers this time. There we go. And now we have oldest rock exposed. Let's erode all the way down flat. So like that. We have oldest rock on top. Wow, you're digging in the ground and the rock is getting younger as you go down. Very strange, but possible because of folding. Okay, moving onwards, we talked about anticline and syncline.